It is Wednesday the 5th of September at about 8:35 a.m. in the morning, and I'm in room 516 at New Siam Guest House in Bang Lampu at the end of Soirambutri. So, I was in Malacca when I spoke last, and since then I stayed there for a couple of weeks and got a bit better. I came up here to Bangkok with my sling on because I thought that I'd get better medical care. So I went to St. Louis Hospital, and it's like a Christian hospital, but it's cheap. And one of the reasons it's cheap is they use like students as part of the nurses. They're walking around in bomber jackets. It's like a biker's gang or something, and they do like the pre-care to weigh you and do all your blood pressure, but there was so much like whispering and looking at me like I was a scum. The first doctor couldn't actually understand him, and he couldn't understand me. The second doctor, I had him before and he just refused to see me both times. He just takes a look at me, shakes his head and says that he's full, and then he just sat round for maybe an hour doing nothing in the waiting room, just talking, laughing at the nurses, looking at me, laughing with them. It was so awful. I left and I went to the Christian hospital in Ceylon. That was expensive. That's $1,000 per doctor. I saw this guy and he told me, to do some isometric exercise, and that I've got no muscle around my shoulder because of myopathy, i.e. the muscle's wasting, which I already knew. Go and see an internal specialist to find out why. Went to see the internal specialist. Yep, the muscle's wasting. So you need to go to another hospital because we can't do the tests here. That's another $1,000 baht. So I went over physiotherapy. I had a couple of sessions there, and there's all the name calling. Every time they put me in a corner behind this curtain, and I'm hearing every time like the alarm goes off and it's time for me to be dealt with. They're like Frank, 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 screaming at it. And it's such an unfriendly atmosphere. I stopped doing that. Worked out my own physiotherapy routine, and I did that for a bit. Got a bit better, and I took off the sling for good. Then I went to the Mission Hospital, which is the last hospital in Bangkok, run by the Christians. It's a bit cheaper. And I saw a guy there who's much, much better. He agreed that I've got myopathy, i.e. the muscle close to the body's wasted. That's been going on for a long time, and told me to go to England and get a diagnosis, which is not going to happen soon. Did another x-ray and said that the bone's in a good position and that I carry on physiotherapy and I don't need to go back. So I first got this kind of weakness when I was about 5 years old, which was a long time ago. I woke up in the morning as a child, stood up, fell flat on my face, couldn't walk, went to the hospital. I just got an x-ray and they said there's nothing wrong. And I was basically just dragged around and forced to walk through the pain. Dropped off at school that there's nothing wrong. But after that, looking back, my legs were weak and there was something wrong. Like when I used to sit in assembly, I was in such agony. One day I went to the middle school, like after a couple of years. We went to a school where in assembly every morning we get chairs, so I don't have to sit on the floor anymore. And I remember speaking to some kids saying, God, it is so much nicer in assembly. We get chairs. It's the pain is just so much less sitting in these chairs. And he looked at me like I was come down a nutcase, and I didn't realise then. And I look back now, but of course, most people don't get intense pain when they sit on the floor. So there was always something wrong like that. And I was like quite weak. I couldn't do things that I couldn't get up and down off the floor. And I was so marginalised and so uncared for as a child. Nobody actually knew. Anyway, travelling around. I was in a hotel in India as an adult once, about 97. And in the course of a week, this weakness, again, this stiffness that spread everywhere. And I couldn't stand up out of a chair. I started getting dislocations in my hip and shoulder. It was really weak for a couple of years. And then I started dreaming. For example, I dreamt of a hotel which I'd never been to before. And in this dream, the stairs were quite short. They weren't very light. They were small steps, and there was a banister either side. And by chance, I went past this hotel one day and realised I dreamt it. And when I walked in, the stairs were just like I dreamt. So I moved to a hotel and I checked into this place. And I started walking like in the dream. So when I walked upstairs, I couldn't actually lift my legs unless I used my hands. And I started using the banister either side to try and strengthen the legs. And I did get a fair bit of the strength back. Although even now I can't get out of a chair without using my arms. But I was very isolated. I wasn't able really to speak to people or to use doctors back then. It's only in these past few years I've been well enough. And I started trying to find out what's wrong. So I've also had a slimming condition. Like, I've starved myself down. The last time I did it, it was about 4 years ago. I got my weight down to 62 kilos. Absolutely starved. But when I started eating again, then this atrophy of the muscle started, which I've been told up until now was just caused by the dieting. But there's clearly just general wasting going on because I do eat normally now. So I need biopsy to find out what is wrong. Is this autoimmune? Is it metabolic? Or is it genetic? Good chance nothing can be done. It might be something that ultimately is fatal. I've just got this illness and I don't know. So when I look now in this case, I can see the bones at the top. I can see how the muscles go myself, but on pen. I haven't really got a mirror in the bathroom, so I didn't notice as much. Plus, I don't use mirrors. I stopped looking in the mirror when I was about 15 because I'd feel that, I look in the mirror and it's like, it's not me. It's not when you say a word and you say the same word again and again and its semantic meaning just disappears and it's just a sound and it sounds very odd. And when I look in the mirror, then the sense of me being in there would just go and I'd feel there's a stranger looking in a way that was actually quite worrying. So I just stopped looking. I do now a little bit. Nowadays, I look in the mirror and there's an old man standing there. And in a way that makes me feel a lot better. Like in the past, I look in the mirror and think, there is a young, decent-looking mixed-race guy, and he doesn't actually go out or know anybody or have friends, and I'd feel really bad about that. Whereas nowadays, I've got this illness, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I can see the muscles going. But there's an old man staring back, and that makes me feel a bit better because I've lived my life, and it's not like I think it's very sad when young people get sick like this, and I've done a lot of the things I wanted to. But I wanted to talk about not so much myopathy, which I will talk about in the future, but I wanted to talk about not looking in the mirror, because that's kind of running away from things, and society makes Western society especially makes a big deal about running away. I was thinking when I used to visit my aunt in the old people's home, it's on the outskirts of town, like most graveyards. There's some in the centre because towns expand, but when they're built to be on the edge. All images to do with death or accidents, etc., are censored in society. We run from the fact of impermanence, and we do things like spend all day looking at an iPhone screen or playing on a tablet or watching Netflix and forgetting impermanence. If there's images like of car accidents or gore or death, it's censored. We run away from impermanence. We spend our lives doing it. I didn't want to look in the mirror because I didn't want to be losing youth and the chance to go out and what I thought would be having fun and stuff. But there is a counterculture. In Thailand, there's a tradition of monks being allowed to meditate inside mortuaries around dead bodies. And there's stories of the Buddhists meditating on the charnel grounds, which is where they used to leave the corpses to rot. So you'd meditate amongst dead people. And the monks would imagine themselves as the corpses. There are specific meditations in Buddhism where you meditate on your own rotting corpse. And the point of this is to bring about a sense of spiritual urgency. So you meditate and are on the journey that ends suffering. You focus on what's important when you don't run from impermanence. And there's also a tradition in the West called Momento Mori, which means remember you will die. So I think in the past people would do things like collect skulls or little coffins or skeletons or mementos of death, things that remind people every day that our time is limited. Concerning my face, I used to run so much from impermanence, but now that, like a good Zen student, I turn and face it squarely, it makes it a bit easier, to be honest. I can see the impermanence in my body and the muscle going. I see the impermanence in my face. And there is that sense of letting go. And it does create a sense of surrender. And it does make me more accepting and more urgent. Already I'm focused on what's important because it's just the way that I've lived life. But there's one thing that you can do as a practice, and I think that's deliberately look at Memento Mori. Nowadays with the internet, it's not hard to find images of death, accidents, autopsies. And of course you tell most people that you do this and they'd be horrified. It's not encouraged. And the people that do seek this kind of thing out on the internet, generally, they're voyeurs. They're looking at it for the wrong reason. But the thing is, there is this kind of fascination. Like when there's an accident in the street, I walk away, I'm with good people. I don't stand there filming it or staring. But there is an urge. It's like if you see someone, of the opposite gender, if you're that way inclined, and there's the tendency to look them up and down. And of course, being a good civilized gentleman, you don't do that. But the urge is there, and the urge is there because there's a deep kind of drive for procreation in our psyche. And when there's impermanence, aging, an accident, a corpse, there's a fascination in people. No one likes to admit that. In the same way we don't say it's just, we look people up and down. People just don't talk about that, but it's there. And there is this fascination with impermanence deep down in people when they occasionally pull their eyes up from their iPhone screen and witness something that just happened, like a crash or something. You turn away because you want to be a good person, and you should be a good person. But why is that fascination there? Why do we want to turn and look at that? And I think it's wrong to run from impermanence. It's a monster we spend our lives running from. And when we turn and face it, it's not what we think. Impermanence is freeing. If you can look at these pictures, if you can find pictures like this, corpses, people who have died, if you can imagine yourself like that, if you can do the Buddhist corpse meditations, if you can see yourself in these situations and you realize that any day is your last, then it does bring about that acceptance and it does bring about that urgency. And I think it's a real weakness in Western society that we do run from this so much. Perhaps once a week, if you look for pictures like this, the idea being the mental fuel to imagine yourself. You could have an accident today. You could die today. In a week's time, your corpse could be yellow and bloated. And when you bear that in mind, then I think it brings you to now. It brings you to this present moment. And that's a practice that is beneficial, that most people would find incredibly uncomfortable. But you need to be balanced. Obviously, the point is at the end of it to feel a sense of gratitude, presence and urgency. If you start feeling depressed or fatalistic, then it's not for you. But as alien as this is, I think done mindfully and spiritually and with a sense of compassion for the people, situations that are sparking this meditation for you, then Momento Mori is a good practice. So I'm flying to Phnom Penh today, kind of this sense of going home. I've got no idea what to do. I'm going to start researching about what this condition could be, the tests that I need, how can I get them, is there any way to get them without going to Europe? I might go back to the cinema, I might find something else. It's going to be a boring time, and I worry if I have another accident, maybe it'll be my picture that you're meditating on. But what to do except be present and be surrendered. Another thing I was going to mention was about this hotel, New Siam. Again, it's in permanence. You know, it's a great big hotel, and there's maybe, it must be 150 rooms here. And they give me a special price. I get it for about $7. I first came here about 10 years ago. It was recommended by a buddy online. And each time I come, they all know me, and I come this time, and there's basically nobody in the hotel. You know, I'm staying in this small soy, which is a street, and when I first came here 25 years ago, there were just 2 little cheap hotels for a couple of bucks each, and there was nothing in this whole street. Nowadays, this street is jam-packed full of businesses, and those businesses are getting more and more la-di-da, as we'd say in Britain. People are, you know, you can get Italian food and Indian food and tacos, and it's all really posh, basically. And the people that come, they've got like 3 or 4 children, and they actually put an evening dress on to come out and sit in these little posh restaurants with statues inside. And when I first came here, it was just a couple of guest houses, and they were typically Thai. You would just sit there with the family, and the meal was what they were eating, or the kind of food they were eating. And how it's all really, that's all disappearing. I worry I'll come back and this place will be gone, because I never thought I'd feel like that. And nowadays everybody's staying in these hostels over on Samson Road, and it's basically a bit more than I'm paying for a dormitory, and I just don't get, I mean, I get that you meet people more, that there's common areas, but there's hotels with common areas. I don't understand why people pay so much for so much less, but it's changed now. That, yeah, it's another thing. It's another type of impermanence. This was a place you could just come and get $2 rooms, and it's all gentrified now. And that's really, but I guess it's sad, but a lot's better as well. It means move on somewhere else or change. Anyway, I better finish packing. I'll give you another update when, if, Dharma willing, I'm settled happily in Phnom Penh. Thanks for listening.